Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Chicken Box. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Thursday, if you woke up, you should be grateful and thankful for just that moment. If you haven't smiled today, you have too much worry and stress. Smiling to yourself will help relieve matter of fact, it'll relieve a lot of it. And if you're older, getting old like me, you got stress to get out of bed. Smiling is one of the best things that you have to do. Jay, how you feeling today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. You know what I mean? I used to speak average words about myself, but when everybody asks me, I got to speak some great words about myself. You know, you got enough people saying bad things about you. You might
That's
as well
right.
just say something great about yourself. So we're
Absolutely.
excited. This is the Chicken Box. If you've never tuned in, if you're not from the Baltimore area, it is full wings, fries. It's lunchtime. It's half and half. And, you know, in other parts of the country, they call it Arnold Palmer. But listen, this is the Chicken Box. But at the Afro, man, we got a birthday coming up, Jay. 133 years.
That's right.
Next week, we have a birthday coming up. It's going to be a beautiful occasion. We got the Black Business Expo, but we'll talk about more about that later. But man, Dr. Draper, our CEO, just jumped in.
Hey, how are y'all?
Doing well.
Good.
Good. Glad to be back. Glad to have all three of us on the box.
Yeah, it's a rarity these days. We're also busy.
All right.
That's
It
a
was
good
just
thing.
a slight echo, but we'll get through it. But your picture looks good. Good to have. We've been all traveling these last few weeks and haven't had a chance to all get on at the same time. So we have some great guests coming up today. Let's jump right into it, Jay. We have the Black Business Expo, and who do we have joining us today with us?
Okay, so we have two guests this week, which is pretty great. So we have Janelle Boyd and Dante Henson. Janelle Boyd is from the Boyd Cru Wines, which is the first grass to glass integrated wine company building from the ground up into a winery that now sits in the historic Savage Mill in Savage, Maryland. Boyd Cru Wines is also family and minority owned, whose mission is to disrupt the wine industry by removing the pretentiousness often associated with wine and instead make it accessible to everyone while focusing on building community, fostering connections, and promoting self-care and self-expression. They are dedicated to producing high-quality wines that reflect a commitment to sustainability and community. To achieve this, they exclusively use 100% Maryland-grown grapes cultivated using sustainable farming methods. By doing so, they actively contribute to the growth and prosperity of the Maryland wine sector and bolster local agriculture. Moreover, their wines are manufactured and produced right here in Maryland, cementing a commitment to the region. And then we have Dante Henson, who is a U.S. Navy veteran who served from 2000 to 2009. After leaving the military, he pursued higher education, earning a BA in Health Administration and Policy and a Master's in Health Information Technology from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. In 2020, he co-founded Los Hermanos 1978 Tequila, an award-winning small batch tequila brand driven by a passion for quality spirits and community. Dante leads the company with a focus on craftsmanship, inclusivity, and shared experiences. So, welcome to the show, both of you. And there he
Janelle,
is.
Dante.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome to the Chicken Box. You guys have done a lot of great things. So we're gonna start. We're always gonna start with ladies first. You know, if Janelle, if I just met you in the elevator or at a networking session, what would be your elevator pitch to us of what your business is all about?
So wow, okay, straight out the gate, huh?
Well,
My
you want to
elevator
warm up for the? You want to
sure.
warm up a little bit? Okay,
No,
okay.
it's fine.
Where are you
It's
from, Janelle? No, just kidding.
no, it's fine. I would say, if I met you, I would say that, we are a grass to glass integrated winery that is building from the ground up from hopes, dreams, and the ability to step out on faith and finally follow a dream that our family had of doing wine differently, making it more approachable, making it built around community, and making sure that we are leaving a legacy not only for our family, but extended to our community as well.
I love it. From the grass to the glass. Welcome, Dante, to the Chicken Box. Um, Pasadena, Baltimore's own. And I'll shout out Atlanta, John L, because I actually live in the Atlanta area now from Baltimore. Dante, same question. We're at the big networking convention, Los Hermanos Tequila. What you got going on over there?
Yeah. I would tell people that Los Hermanos is a small batch, multi-award winning tequila brand that was founded by two brothers from Baltimore who happen to be Black and veteran owned. Really short, simple to the point.
I love it. Two brothers from Baltimore. The bet. What is the overarching title of the industry? Is it the wine and liquor, or is it separate, or is it spirits? What is it labeled as? For those of us that don't really know,
I would say there's a distinction between, well, the overarching thing is bev alcohol, right? That kind of encompasses all of the different spirits and wines and everything in between.
Okay, all right. So let's jump right in, Dr. Draper.
Well, let me first say welcome to both of our guests. This is the second Chicken Box in a row that we've talked about some kind of spirits. I think last week, Jay, it was beer and wine, and this week it's wine and wine, right?
Wine and tequila.
Tequila.
But see,
tequila. Don't mix them.
Well,
don't mix it.
Let me ask.
No.
Let me ask Dante, because clearly clearly because of that, you all know I don't know one from the other. I'm a non-drinker of any of it, so I don't know any of it. And that's not to put myself on a pedestal. I just never acquired a taste for tequila, wine, beer, anything. But Los Hermanos, tell us a little bit about Los Hermanos Tequila. Los Hermanos meaning the brothers in Spanish, and so help. There may be somebody else watching, probably two people, me and a 3-year-old, but two people who don't know the difference between, don't know what tequila is.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So tequila is an agave-based spirit. So regardless of what type of spirits you're drinking or whatever beverage you're drinking, it's all come from some kind of plant, fruit, or vegetable. And tequila is come from agave, which is sort of that cactus family that grows in Mexico. It's distilled the same way that you would distill a whiskey, and then same way the whiskey is rested in barrels. Tequila is the same thing. So they harvest the agave plants, but if you've never seen them in the beginning, they look like the cactus, or like aloe almost. And when they grow fully, they grow like 7 feet tall, so they almost look like trees. And the heart of it is called the piña because it looks like a pineapple. And these things weigh anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds. So they take the agave, they chop it into pieces, they cook it in a traditional oven or in a pressure cooker, and then they take the pieces of the agave and they run it through a shredder, which they gets all the juice out of it. Then they ferment it, which is called the beer. They take the beer and then they distill it usually twice, and then as soon as that liquid is distilled, that's your tequila. You can bottle it immediately, and that's what you get, the Blanco, or you can age it in barrels. And depending on the various length of time that you age it, it has a different name for each category. So from 1 to 12 months or 11 months, it's in reposado, which means rested in Spanish. So you go to a year to a year and a half, it's in añejo, which again means annual, so a year. And then if you go like 18 months plus, then it's extra añejo. So it's just an agave-based spirit. That's what really, and tequila has to be produced in Mexico in order to be called tequila. I think that's an important distinction.
Say that again. It has to do what?
It has to be produced in Mexico, in one of 5 regions in Mexico in order to be called tequila.
So it has to be harvested or produced in Mexico to be able to have the label tequila. Okay, got it. Ooh, that was a whole lot to absorb. Thank you so much. Okay, so Janelle, how about your process for your wines? It has to be produced someplace special as well.
Well, no, wine is, I always say wine is actually somewhat simpler process, depending on who you ask. But, for in terms of harvesting the grapes, I think that's probably, the most complicated part of the process, because of course we have no control over Mother Nature. Mother Nature is going to do what she does no matter what. So when it comes to harvest and making sure that the vines, are tended well, that irrigation can get through, the vineyard and through the soil, and even making sure that pesticides and certain things that can make the vines weak or make them frail or not as healthy. I think that's where the more complicated of the process lies. Once the harvesting is done, then the rest of the process lies with the winemaker. So that's where the magic and the artistry starts to unfold, where we get to decide if we want to ferment in barrel, similar to what Dante was referencing earlier. If we want to ferment in, a Hungarian barrel versus a French oak barrel versus a lightly toasted barrel. Or in the case of whites and rosés, it might be that we're fermenting in steel tank. So that's where and then you get to decide on your yeast strain, which really is designed to just bring out different flavor profiles. If harvesting is done well, and if the vines have been tended well, then the grapes really should be able to speak for themselves. And that's what we tend to lean into, is allowing the fruit, the grapes, to speak for themselves, each varietal to speak for itself, without there being a whole lot of manipulation in terms of additives and sugar and processed things that are placed into our wine, so that our customers can really enjoy. That's part of the experience of wine, is really enjoying what's in your glass, from smelling it to drinking it to savoring it to letting it, dance on your palate. That's where the experience happens, right? And so as a winemaker, I really like to lean into blends, and we do a lot of blending with our wines, because I believe, just like artistry, you get a different perspective depending on what you're blending, and one person might taste one thing and another person might taste another, just like if you look at a piece of artwork. And so that's where I would say, as you can see, that's where my passion really lies. I love talking about the making of it and the process of it, and how it gets from that grape to that glass.
Excellent.
I was all about Jay, before you jump in, what kind of dance does it do?
Say that again.
Am I cutting off and on?
No.
Is my internet slow? Okay.
It was.
Yeah, anyway,
I missed the first part of what you said.
I said, what kind of dance does it do? You said it does a dance on the palate.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it depends on the person. Some people like a slow dance. Some people like a little bit of cha-cha. Some people like a little bit of a quicker pace.
That kind of dance. All right.
Yeah,
No. Okay.
yeah,
I'm getting into it
and
now.
that's why you have
I'm sorry.
different varietals. I tell people the best wine is the one that you truly enjoy. It's not about what other people like. It's about what you like.
I love it. Jay Jackson, I'm sorry, brother.
So I have long developed a taste and enjoyment for these things, so I will speak from personal experience. So I guess I'll go to Dante first. So looking over your website last night, and I'm pretty sure I've had your tequila before. Which when I saw the label, I was like, that looks familiar. And so it's very good, by the way, just as an aside. So like you had mentioned before, depending on how long things are aged, right? So the sort of the Blanco is kind of, it's like a fairly young tequila, so to speak, right? And then Reposado and then Añejo, right, as they get older. Can you speak to like what are the difference in flavors for folks who don't know? If you're just kind of if you're buying a bottle off the shelf, whether it's Los Hermanos or some other brand, what are like? Are you getting a richer flavor from the older or the younger? Can you explain the difference for folks who may not know?
Absolutely. So your Blanco is going to be unaged. So this is tequila as soon as it's distilled, it's cooled and bottled immediately. With this one, you'll get a little bit of light smokiness just from the way it's produced. From the roasted of the agave, you'll get little white peppercorns, and this one's like a little bit of floral, right? So this is generally what you get with our Blancos. With the Reposado, we take the same tequila and we're aging it 8 months in the white oak bourbon barrels. So this one really has a heavy char on the barrel. So you'll get a lot more body with this one. It's has a lot more sweeter notes that pulls through from the barrel. And most time people like it because this is something that you can really enjoy on its own. Like just that you can sip it neat, like even at room temperature. And that's just an outset. It lets all of the ingredients speak for themselves, right? Like there's no added sugars, no flavor, no coloring, no nothing. It's just the tequila in the barrel, right? And then your añejos, this one is 12 months. So for us, we use a lighter char on the barrel to pull more of the whiskey notes through. So our añejo is a little bit lighter in the body than the Reposado, and it has that nice balance between that whiskey and the tequila. But with this one, like a lot of times people say they'll get butterscotch notes, right, off of that blend.
Right.
So it's interesting to see what different palates get, but all three definitely have a distinct profile.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. The first, in college, I always drank what I guess would be the Blanco version because it was like, this is less expensive. So like this is what I'm getting. Who knows what the quality is? But as I got older and I tried Añejo when I was on vacation or something, it was like, oh, okay, like this is a very big difference. And I think a lot of people just say tequila and they don't really know, like this one's white and this one's brown. So like they don't really know the differences. So thank you for explaining that. And then Janelle, looking over your stuff last night, you guys have red blends and white blends as well. I noticed you guys do what is it, Vidal Blanc, which is if I recall, that's a French grape. Yes,
it is
originally.
Yes.
So how does that work? I know it's like it's grown across the U.S., especially probably out west and things like that, and obviously in Maryland as well. So why was that the grape that you guys decided on? Was it just like you tried this and you're like, this is it? Are there a lot of grapes? Because I don't know what the sort of how many varieties are grown in Maryland. Were there a lot to choose from, and this one just kind of you really enjoyed that one, or what was it? How was that chosen?
So no, that's a great question, Jay. So we actually leaned into grapes and varietals that grow well here in Maryland. We decided, earlier on when we were doing our research and really determining, what were going to be kind of some of the differentiators that we wanted to highlight in our decision-making process. One of those was that we didn't necessarily go with the most popular or well-known grapes, because we could have chosen a Chardonnay. We could have chosen just a straight Merlot, which are varietals that people are very familiar with and have heard of before. But when we were looking at, when we tested the soil, like we looked at the soil here in Maryland, then we started looking at, what varietals grow extremely well here in Maryland, where they're durable, where they're healthy, where they are going to produce a higher quality of wine, because we knew we didn't want to scale back on the quality of the wine that we were going to make and produce. And so one of the things we started seeing were there were certain grapes that just did extremely well here because of the soil, because of the climate, because of the irrigation. And Vidal Blanc, while not the most popular, because it is a hybrid grape, hybrid grapes tend to not get as much clout as the I call them the big varietals.
Right.
They don't get as much clout, but we said, you know what, this is a grape that is going to surprise people. This is a grape that is going to jump out of people's glass, and they're going to want to know more about it, even if they haven't had it before or if they haven't heard of it. And to date, it is our best-selling wine. So there is something to be said about not always leaning into what people know, but more so leaning into what grows better. And then you get to introduce it to people so that they do get to know it.
Excellent. And what are the, I mean, I always like to find, I love finding sort of new grapes that I haven't had and things like that. I always think that's really fun. I know some people are just like, I've heard of Chardonnay, I've heard of Merlot, maybe they've heard of like Malbec or something like that.
Right. Like another one that we use a lot of is Barbera. And Barbera is an Italian grape.
So it's a Piedmont? Is that a Piedmont or something like that?
Similar.
Okay.
Yeah. But it grows it originates from Italy, but again, grows extremely well here because of its durability. It's very similar, stylistically, it's very similar to a Pinot Noir, but Pinot Noir is very flimsy. It is a very delicate grape, so it just would not endure our heat and our climate. And so Barbera was kind of the next thing over that was similar. With its fruit forwardness, it has great fruit on the front, but then gives you a very smooth taste on the back end, light to medium bodied. But yet a lot of people had not had it. And when we made our very first blend, our Living Legacy, which is predominantly, 80% Barbera, but then we blended it with some Cabernet Franc, some Merlot, and some Malbec, and it's a beautiful blend.
All right, you're speaking my language. That's all. I just want to nerd out, like booze nerd out for 1 second. Like you mentioned, like Pinot Noirs are really kind of very delicate, finicky grapes. Like they're largely only grown in like Oregon in the United States. And
Oregon,
like,
Washington,
Willamette County.
So Oregon, the Willamette Valley, Washington State, and then you have Russian River Valley over in Napa, where they have their Pinot Noir there. It grows extremely well there. But I always like to call out for people that you can literally have the same varietal, but from a different region, and it tastes completely
different. Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks. Sorry, didn't mean to nerd out there a little bit.
No, you're fine.
Listen, I'm here like this. I'm eating my popcorn. I'm Googling stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, it's 10,000 different grapes.
Exactly.
Green and red grapes growing up. I'm like,
exactly 10,000 different grapes, right? Isn't that fascinating?
It is I think people just again, it's like what I was saying to Dante. It's like some people just go, it's tequila. Like there are so many different levels to this stuff, and so it's cool to talk to people who are deep into this stuff, and especially people from our communities. I think it's super dope. And Janelle, when we read your bio earlier about removing that pretentiousness, right? I think more Black folks are getting into wines and higher grade spirits and things like that, and it's cool to see because once you get into it, you're like, oh, okay, like. There's a little bit more than it's not all ripple, right? Like,
yes,
like
my favorite thing is to see when people come into the tasting room, from our community, and they just we start talking to them and they just light up. It's like all of a sudden they're like, wow, I had no idea. And that is what I love, because like you just said, I think it's easy to be like, oh, it's wine. It's just wine, but when you really start getting into, all of the different, varietals and variances, it's really, it's really exciting.
So that's why all that shelf space. Go ahead, Dr. Draper.
I said this conversation speaks so many questions for me, and so many questions. Listen, Jay raised something. Oh, for our audience who's listening in case you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box powered by the soon-to-be next week 133-year-old Afro News, the oldest Black-owned, continuously published Black newspaper. We're not really a newspaper, that's why I hesitated in the country. And next week we have a Black Business Matters EXPO. It's running across your screen now. Get your ticket today. Both Janelle and Dante will be there on the fourth floor where we can taste their product as well as buy some, purchase their product. But here's my curiosity, especially Jay, you reminded me of this. You all are in a space, both of you, that's not occupied by a whole lot of people that look like us. Let's just be honest about that, right? So, what piqued your interest for this industry? I want people to know how unique you are, and I know you're not just trying to be the only. You're not the only ones, but it's not hundreds of African Americans, not hundreds of Black folk. There may be millions of us consuming, but you all are entrepreneurs. You're producing. You're business owners. What's your backstory? How'd you get into all of this? And let us know. Dante, I'm going to start with you. You know, tell us a little bit about the backstory of Los Hermanos, your own journey, what you'd recommend to young folk that might want to get in that. How rare is it? I mean, I'm asking you a whole lot of questions. Sorry, you know, we're a news organization, but you know, just because you're unique in this space.
Got you. Well, I think the first thing I'll say this. Anybody that's looking to get in this industry, do research. If you think you've done research enough, do some more. Like this is an endeavor that we kind of stumbled into that's way more than I ever anticipated. But quickly, my wife liked tequila. So during the lockdowns back in 2020, my brother would always bring a bottle of tequila to the house because he knows my wife liked. And so the three of us would sit around and just try different brands of tequila. And my brother got to a point where, you know, we kind of took this deep dive into how tequila was being produced, how different houses produce different flavors of tequila. And, you know, why it was different. You know, because in my mind, like Jay, tequila was tequila, right? Like, how did it taste so differently coming from so many different people? And so my brother took this thing, all this knowledge, he's excited, and he's going out promoting being a brand ambassador for brands that he liked. And when I saw that he was really getting traction with people, you know, that was a light bulb moment for me. And I was just like, hey, like, you know, you're doing all this work, you ain't got a t-shirt or nothing. You know, my brother's like, we should probably start our own brand, right? Like, who knows what'll happen? And he's like, you're crazy. What do we know about starting a tequila brand? And I was like, well, we know what good tequila tastes like. I said, the business side of it, if other people are doing it, then we can figure it out too. And, you know, he was kind of hesitant on the fence, but I said, give me a couple of days. Let me go look into it, because the last thing I want is to let a good idea get past us because we didn't take it seriously. And from then, I think this is maybe April 2020, I just started cold calling people. So whether it's other brand owners I'm reaching out through Instagram or Facebook, cold calling stores, distributors, whomever would answer the phone for me. And at that time, people was giving me 35, 40 minutes on a cold call. And so between that and Google, after a while, I was just like, okay, I think I can figure out how to put this thing together. And I started reaching out to distilleries in Mexico, you know, just shooting them messages, just, you know, telling them who we are, what we're trying to do. And we had, I think, like 3 came back to us, you know, and you know, everybody sent emails, but one distillery wanted to set up a Zoom call. So I was like, okay, here we go. And what I didn't know at the time, in Mexico, family is a huge thing. So when I'm getting on the call with the gentleman from the distillery, I'm thinking he's just somebody who works there, not knowing this is the owner's son who's actually we're talking to. And I'm telling him, my brother and I, we just got this great idea. You know, we want to create a family brand just to have our own tequila. So we have our own little family functions. You know, we're sitting around drinking our own stuff. And the guy liked, you know, what we were doing. So he told us they would produce for us, but they would also help us get to market. And so from then, I was like, so, right? Like, and, you know, he walked us through the process. And from then, you know, me, my brother and my wife, we sat down, and it was like, you know, we wanted a name for the brand that it encapsulate that familial vibe, because that was the whole reason that we were even drinking tequila, just this over us bonding. And for people who don't know, my big brother is 7 years older than me. And at one point in time in life, like, people used to confuse us for twins all the time. So anytime somebody see one of us, they'd be like, hey, where's your brother? Where's your brother? And so as we're sitting together trying to think of a name, Casamigos is taken, La Familia is taken, and I was just like, okay, I need something family oriented. And it just came to me. I was like, what's the brothers in Spanish? And I Googled it, and I was like, Los Hermanos. I was like, I like that, right? The double entendre. And we built the whole brand really just about brotherhood and, us bonding. And so just to really quickly, once we got the company set up, established and everything, we reached back out to the distillery and says, okay, we got all our permits and licenses, we want to move forward. They told us at that time during COVID, people really weren't traveling. So they had samples of their tequila they could send to us to use as a baseline to see if we like what they do. Or if we were willing to fly, we could come to Mexico. And, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. My wife was like, absolutely not. She was like, do you see what's happening out there? There's no way you're flying. So, I said, okay, fine, send us the samples. And it took a month to get here. And I was just like, no way. If every time I got to go through iteration, it takes a month, I'll be here the rest of my life. This is not working. So I told my wife, we got to go to Mexico. And that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made, because prior to going to Mexico, only thing I knew was tequila. We're pulling up. We might drink and eat. We might take shots. But that's really, if you like the flavor or not, that's all I knew. But when we had the opportunity to go to Mexico for the first time, we spent 4 days down there with the distillery. And we're thinking, we're going to come in, we're going to taste some tequila, let's put our package together and let's leave. And it was like, absolutely not. That very first day, we spent in the field with the farmers out there tending to the agaves. And what we learned is, what I learned, is the people you see with the coas all the time, the humidors, these are not the farmers. These are the guys at the end of the process. There are regular, everyday farmers, just like there's farmers taking care of watermelons or cantaloupes. There are farmers out there every day tending to this agave while it grows. Once it's done, then the humidors are the last guys who come in with the coa and, and cut all the pins off before they ship it. But spent the second day with the master distiller going through the plant to understand how these big giant peas become the juice that's in your bottle. And then it wasn't until the third day that we actually went to the tasting room, and they gave us actual tasting class. When we walk in the room, all the tequilas and champagne flutes, right? And like that blew our mind. And we sat down and we went through all the iterations of Blanco until we found the one that we liked. We went through all the iterations of Reposado until we found the ones that we liked. And once we had those profiles, that's when we went back and said, okay, let's figure out what bottle we want. Let's figure out what kind of label we want. How do we want the label to look? And we really built the brand that day then, or that on that trip in Mexico back in 2020. And from then it was like, we had the opportunity to spend like the last day and a half just absorbing the culture in tequila and in Guadalajara. And so like we came back so enlightened to understand that people there, they don't take shots. If you ask for tequila, you're gonna get it in the whiskey glass, they're gonna pour it up neat. Right. And like only time you saw tequila shot glasses was in a tourist area, right? And it was just like, oh, nobody really, and because for them, they understand how long it takes to get this juice, all the work that goes into this, dealing with this plant every day for 7 years almost before it gets harvested, right? And so for them, no, you take the time to sip it and appreciate it. So that was like, how we kind of stumbled into this brand. And then again, we launched the brand in August of 21. Right here in Baltimore, we had our first store in Utah Street that gave us the placement. And we've been able to grow the brand from one store to now we have over 230 stores across 5 states. We've won 44 awards in less than 4 years, which makes us one of the most Black-owned water tequilas in the whole country. So that was a lot. So I'll give you guys a chance to.
Well, what a great story. I hope you
Amazing.
I hope you've written it down, you've recorded it, you've done something, because there are people out here that say, I want to start a business. I don't have a clue. I'm afraid to start a business. I don't know anything about it. And your story is a testimony of, follow your passion and it'll, it'll happen. Thank you for that. Janelle, come on, let's give us your backstory. How'd you get into this?
Yeah, well, I think, similar to Dante, me and my husband, we have always enjoyed wine. Wine has been a huge part of just life for us, all the way back to sitting around the table with our families, opening up a good bottle of wine. One of the things that you'll find in our tasting room is a sign that says there's a story. It says a story in every bottle. And that traces back to us sitting around the table, during dinner time, during a family function, and those stories being created, during that time with whatever that bottle of wine that was opened, then that's what the story was. That's the story it was telling. And, as we continue to travel, me and my husband would go to different wineries, different vineyards in different regions from, New York up to the Finger Lakes. We have gone out to Napa, Sonoma. We've gone over to Morocco and Italy, and just seeing the different vineyards, trying the different wines from the different regions, just always intrigued us. But the most important thing that we always walked away with was having built community. Like, you can open a bottle of wine and think you have absolutely nothing in common with the person sitting across the table from you. And all of a sudden, this wine, this bottle of wine has a way of bringing out all of these commonalities that you can find with a person who you've just met. And so we would leave from these places and these spaces, and all of a sudden we had new friends, or we had, extended family because we still kept in touch with them, And so as we kind of entered into or I should say the pandemic entered us into it, we found that we had a lot of time on our hands. And one of the things we always had talked about is that we wanted to start a winery or a vineyard, once we retired. And, during the pandemic, we said, you know what, I especially after doing a lot of research, we was like, I don't know if retirement is quite where we want to land with this, especially getting it started. And so we started, that really led us to start doing more research and really looking at, okay, is this something that we could do, but do it differently? I think also because we were having conversations with friends and family, they were excited about the possibility of, us kind of following this dream or following this path. And, they also were encouraging us. And so, the other thing we started to see, especially during the pandemic, is we started seeing different organizations that were advocating to have more diversity in the industry, because we didn't see, that was the number one thing I would say as we traveled around, we didn't see a lot of people who looked like us in the industry. And so it always drew the question, as to why is this? We know we like wine. We knew plenty of people who look like us who like wine, but we didn't see a lot of us making it or, having ownership in it. And so, one of the things that kind of gave us, I would say, the true encouragement or impetus to go ahead and take this leap of faith was we ended up losing some family members during the pandemic, one being my husband's mother, and then also my nephew. And both of them really embodied the essence of family and community. And that was in that moment, like many people, we had this epiphany that if we don't do this now, then when? Because sometimes we can put things off and then you look up and it never happens. And so at that point, we got I would say that's when kind of the tides turned and we got really serious about how are we going to get this business running? How are we going to get it off the ground? And the first thing that, I decided to do, because at the time I was running a event planning business. So I'm a third generation entrepreneur. It's in my blood. This probably is not the last business, but I knew that if this was something we were going to do, then we had to get experience in understanding how to make our wine, because that was very important to us, that we understood the process and what to do, how to do it, and what we wanted to do with making our own wine. So I actually talked with a young lady up in the Finger Lakes who was working, she's a female winemaker still to this day, and was working at the oldest vineyard in the Finger Lakes called Hosmer Winery, and approached her about teaching me, showing me how to make wine and teaching me, what she knew. And, the first thing I remember, the first thing she said to me was, are you used to, I want to make sure you understand that 90% of winemaking is cleaning up a mess. She's like, so are you used to cleaning up messes? And I said, well, I got 2 small kids. So the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Right. And so from there, she said, well, if you are willing to put the skin in the game, then I'm willing to teach you. And so I spent 4 months up in the Finger Lakes with her, learning the winemaking process. And from there, I came back and we went straight to figuring out, where can we make our wine and how can we partner with initially with local growers right here in Maryland so that we could get the process of making our wine started. And so when I say we are very hands-on, that is with intentionality, because we want our community to know that we made the decisions about, what type of barrels it was going to go in, what type of yeast we were going to use for each wine, what everything down to what the bottle, is going to look like. And then even the artistic design on the bottles, that there was an element of community that we also felt very strongly about. And so even with the design of our labels, we sought out local artists right here in the DMV to help design each and every one of our labels. So our wines have names like Community Vidal Blanc, Living Legacy Red Blend, Free Spirit Rosé, Liberated Embers, which is our sparkling Vidal Blanc. And those are all, very community oriented. And they tell the design of the bottle. It tells a story, it tells a story that those artists helped us to create. And so starting with making the wine was the first phase. And then this year we entered into our second phase, which was finding a location to open up our tasting room where we could further, draw in the community aspect that we truly feel deeply about, and bringing in organizations that can further their impact. We feature 12 local minority-owned small businesses in our tasting room as a part of what we call our retail residency program. And that stemmed from our experiences with trying to get into retail when we first got started. To Dante's point, it is no easy feat, and so we wanted to be able to help other small businesses have a on-ramp, in a smaller setting of how do I get into some of these big box retailers if I'm a small brand, a small fish out here in a large pond. So those are just some of the things that, this journey has afforded us. And, by no means we had no clue that this is where it would take us, but we are so grateful. And it has been a blessing.
Wow,
excellent.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's really nice to sort of pay it forward, considering how tough that was for you guys to get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are you looking to expand as far as other grapes that you're offering, whether in your tasting room or for sale?
Yeah, we have 3 new wines coming out.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you
now, I can't give it all away.
Okay.
I can't give it all away, but I will say that, so 2 of them were limited releases that we did last year. So part of winemaking is also testing your market out.
Sure.
You have to see what people are going to love. Our 3 signature wines are the ones that we first started with, and those will never go away. I think our community would have a lot to say if they did. So those will always be around. But the 2 that we are bringing back, one being called the Audacity. It's a bolder red from our Living Legacy. It has a lot more fruit on the front of it. It has undertones of like black currant, cherry, a little bit of cola, but it lingers on your palate and it is just absolutely delicious. We only did a limited release of like 50 cases last year. And so it just flew. And so we're bringing that back at the end of August, beginning of September. So that's something that I know our community is really looking forward to. And then we also did what I call a reimagined Chardonnay. So Chardonnay has had this long-standing battle of the Chardonnays in the wine world, with half of people loving a big oaky Chardonnay, and then half of the consumers loving a big buttery Chardonnay. And so we just took the whole thing and flipped it on its head and said, what if we don't do either, and we just make it very floral and aromatic, and see how that lands with people. And apparently it landed well. Again, we did 50 cases of it. It flew out the door. And so we're bringing that back at the end of August as well. And then we've got one more in the pipe that I can't quite share about.
Okay. No, that's fair. So people got to be on the lookout. That's awesome. So Dante, sort of same question to you. You guys have the sort of the three levels. And I know there's, like you mentioned, there's the extra añejo, which is the even older oak aged tequila. Is there space, or have you guys thought about doing something like that, or is there space to sort of open Los Hermanos to, let's say, mezcals or some other thing, or do you have any sort of future view on that, or right now you guys are doing really well where you are and you're sort of sticking there?
So the immediate plan is just to stay in our lane and run these 3 SKUs and push them really hard. I will say in that 3 to 5 year space, I think one of the big things that we're really planning to do is collab with a local distillery to get some barrels, because there's a lot of great whiskey rye producers right here in the state, to get a couple of those barrels to ship down to Mexico to age our reposado in, so we can come back with a super Baltimore blend.
Okay, I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so like Janelle said, one barrel for us produces about 50 cases, so we want to do like maybe 100 cases, numbered labels. This is the limited edition Super Baltimore thing that we want to do. And outside of that, again, in the spirit of collaboration of working with local people, we've been talking to some local companies about producing RTD. So again, we have our mixes. So we have our own 10 signature cocktails that we make with our tequila. And when we're out, we're really exposing people to something different. And people are like, wow, this is great, this is that. And we have a chance to offer people something that people aren't really doing yet. And so this is one of the things that I want to do as well, really put these mixes in a cocktail. Because even if I tell people, the recipe is on the website, people are like, I don't want to do all the work. I just want to drink. Just give it to me, So right. I feel like that's a good market share that we're kind of missing out on, that, that could potentially, bring that second revenue stream in. So, yeah, those are, I think, the kind of things that we kind of got lined up in the intermediate future.
So, and just for people who may not be aware, RTD is ready to drink. Is that correct?
Yes, ready to drink. So this is a cocktail, in the can cocktail, tequila, and the mixer is all ready to get for you. So all you got to do is chill it, crack the top, and, enjoy it.
There you go. Yeah, not everybody does those wells, but when they are done well, it is especially like summertime, that's a super convenient thing. So, yeah, I wish you all the luck on that. That's awesome. So in the sort of, you guys both have mentioned sort of that spirit of collaboration, right? And community, which I think is deeply important in any business, but also especially Black businesses, right? Because sometimes you find yourself on an island and you're like, where is everybody who looks like me? And it's like, you're the first one, right? Or there's like 2 of you. What in the industry for both of you have you found, when you got into the industry, and obviously there's probably, I don't imagine there's a lot of Black tequila makers, and especially not in Mexico, but and Janelle, we know there's not a lot of Black wineries in the United States. It's certainly increasing over time, but still pretty limited. When you came into the industry, what were the things about it that you were not expecting, that you kind of ran into, good or bad, and you were like, oh, that's kind of a thing I wasn't expecting as a Black person? Were you more welcome in certain spaces? Were you less welcome? And we were like, you know what, I got to make my own avenue. How was that experience for both of you? I'll go to Janelle first.
Yeah.
So I will say that I think um, the local winery support was there. Like there are a lot of grape growers and vineyards that if they see that you are serious about your craft, then they are more willing to support and share resources and things like that because they want to see, especially again, if you are looking to support and make locally, they want to see local businesses do well, especially within the same industry, because true enough, it really affects all of us. It's like they say, one bad seed can spoil the bunch. It's like if you're not making good wine, that ends up reflecting poorly on all of us, right? I do think that where we ran into some tension is because there are not a lot of people who were doing it the way that we were doing it. I mean, our process, some would call it very, very unique and in some cases disjointed, right? Like we go to Poolsville, where the production facility is, and we bring our grapes from Kennedyville to Poolsville. We make our wine there in Poolsville. And then now you add on the complexity of now bringing that wine, traveling with that wine from Poolsville to now Savage, Maryland. So we're kind of in multiple places and spaces with the process in order to get from one part to from the grapes to the glass, right? And so I think if you're not familiar with Maryland laws, especially as it relates to alcohol, it can feel like you're walking in the 1950s. And so a lot of just very outdated prohibition type, laws and permitting and licensing that you are trying to climb through and weed through. And then on top of that, you're like this unique animal that nobody has ever seen. And so they don't really know what to do with you. And so I think that's a lot of what we have experienced is, well, we've not had anybody do that, so we're gonna have to get back to you on that, or well, that can't be done. I mean, it took us almost 6 months, maybe more, to get our permitting approved on the tasting room when we were already a licensed and permitted winery already. So if that gives you any indication of the disjointedness that can happen, that's what we had to, I think that was those have been our biggest challenges, and trying to work through those in some cases, even to the degree of, well, maybe a new law needs to be created because it's no longer applicable.
Yeah, I mean, I think people may not realize, like, Maryland blue laws about even buying alcohol on Sundays is only ended maybe 10 years ago.
Correct.
And then some people are just like, oh, we've always done that, so we're going to still do it, which is weird. So, yeah, it's like, oh, we're so modern. It's like, are we, though? Like,
are we?
Yeah, right. Like, it's bizarre. Very bizarre. Dante, to the same point, is there anything that you found, positive or negative, or, somewhere in between, that you were like, I was not expecting this in the industry as a black owner?
I would say 90%. It's been overwhelmingly positive. Like, when we show up in spaces. And the biggest thing I think for me is when we go to Mexico, all of the hang-ups that we have here about people and about color, it goes away as soon as you cross the border. Like, and people ask me all the time, like, how do they react to you in Mexico? How do they feel about you in Mexico? Do you feel safe? And I was like, yes. Like, when I'm in Mexico, these people don't look twice at me. I mean, obviously, I'm 6'3", 300 pounds, so they see a big tall dude. Of course, they're looking, but outside of that, it's nothing. Like, I'm there, and it's And I'll tell you one story. Last year, me and my wife went to Tequila, Mexico, because our distillery had a festival, Day of the Dead festival, in the town square of Tequila. And so they invited us to participate in this festival. So, we go. I've been to Mexico a lot. I walk through the crowds, easy as breezes, no problem. But I'm like, I don't really know how these people are going to react to us, as a booth, as the owners of this brand. And, when we get there, right, the name, obviously, it draws people's eyes like Los Hermanos. So they look and they see us. And, like, first they might be confused for a second. But people are overwhelmingly positive. Like, they're happy to see somebody else doing a good job representing their culture, their thing, taking interest in their culture. They loved it, and it's been great, right? And even home here, like outside of Baltimore, everywhere I go, generally, when you go to these spaces where you might be the only one, right? You're kind of looking around like, I don't really know. People are still positive in this industry. Like, we've gotten embraced from whether it's the Maryland Distillers Guild, it's been other tequila brand owners, like, because like people understand how hard this industry is to make it. And so majority of the time, most other people in it are like, if they're further along, hey, here's some things to help you out. Here's some resources here you might know, or other people that's where you are, generally speaking, are like, hey, can we talk? Let's just bounce some ideas off each other. So it's been really great. I think the only place where, we've kind of faced any kind of challenges is when you're starting to get into like the finance and banking space. Because we are sitting in this thing like where we have to educate them that we are not the distillery. We don't own the distillery, right? Like, we partner with them, the distillery produces for us. And like, not a lot of financial institutions have experience of working with spirits company or beverage alcohol across the board. So this kind of fits in a really unique lane. And when you're like, people are like, oh, you talk to this company, you talk to that company, and a lot of people don't have experience working with this, or they like, never invested in something like this, or things like that. So then, you're kind of like, while there's a lot of resources out there, a lot of it isn't applicable to you in your industry. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we've been fighting with the last 5 years. But other than that, I mean, it's been a great journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been living in that same part of the world for 2 years, and your point about like a lot of things fade away once you cross the border is very true. It's absolutely true. It's been my experience as well. No, I think it's probably this is a good time to do our sort of last segment. So I'm going to pass it over to my co-host for that part.
Y'all are so joyful. Congratulations on the energy that you put into the business. It shows. You at least come to work with a smile. You like what you're doing. You get to talking about the dancing palette, and Jay was smiling, and Dante was smiling, and the brothers were enjoying the bond. And it was I was just watching you guys' face as you talked about what you did. Everybody doesn't get up and get to live their passion, but you have to jump off the cliff a little bit and get past your comfort zone to get into the space that you're going to enjoy waking up doing what you're doing. I'm going to be at the Black Expo next week. It's going to be the Afro's 133rd birthday. I've been a designated driver since high school, but I think a little wine never hurt nobody, right? and a little, like this, the Bible says, don't be drunk with it now. If you see me falling down because I had a sip, then that was the wrong move for me. But other than that, I'm going to definitely come by and say hello, guys. If you have not gotten your tickets to next week, it's going to be some brilliant minds. It's going to be some great entrepreneurs. The energy of the room just for Black entrepreneurship is going to be at an all-time high level. This is an annual event right around the Afro's birthday. The oldest Black business in Maryland. It's probably the third oldest in the country, which says a lot. We've made some mistakes, and we've had more wins than mistakes, and that's what's very important. And, it's not really a mistake. It's a lesson. I'm going to say that in business. As long as you keep doing the same thing, you'll move your business a little bit further. So this is the Chicken Box. Go to afro.com. We're unapologetically Black. We're unapologetically telling Black stories for over 133 years. Get a subscription, digital, for $40 a year, less than 2 Uber Eats. I think you can handle it. If you want the newspaper, like they said, Baltimore don't pay $100. You can get a subscription to the Afro delivered right to the mailbox, house, business office of your choice. It makes a great gift and it supports the Black press. We have a lot of great young media talent that other spaces won't allow them to even get their gift started in media, and the Afro has been there to launch their careers. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person. This conversation can go on probably for a day. Jay could talk about it for like 2 days. I saw that he's down there in Mexico with so if you need a guy on the street in Mexico, come on, Jay. Come down there. You must take care of it.
That's all right.
Hey, do you know Spanish, Dante? I'm sorry, I meant to ask you that.
Not at all.
You need to learn a little bit so you can, you know what I mean? So you can do. All right, so this is the last thing. I'm going to jump on the box first. We get on the box and I pretty much was on it just a second ago. Just come support Black businesses, you guys. Stop talking about it. Nobody's coming to save us. They talk about our billion. We hear the same story for all these years about our $1 billion spending power. But we need to find it with our own Black businesses and distribute that money there and not just at the beauty salon and the barbershop. And I'm off the box to now, John now, Boyd, and Dante Henson. You are trailblazers, and you are now in the 133-year-old Afro archives. It used to be newspapers. When our kids look back and see who was in the archive, they'll see you guys doing great things, but it'll be video. Thank you for coming on the box. Jay?
Sure. So I always like to give a quote from people who I think are better than I am at this stuff. So when it comes, I think alcohol along with food, it all fills in the sort of the same world to me about sort of experiences outside of yourself, right? Like you said, Janelle, you said earlier, just opening a bottle of wine, you'd be surprised how it can just kind of bring people together in ways that you weren't expecting. There's a great quote from someone I really quite admired, who's passed away now, Anthony Bourdain, who said, quote, "Don't drink at your hotel. Find out where the people who work at the hotel do their drinking. Don't be afraid, be smart, but be open to the world," which I think is a really good way of trying new things, whether it's alcohol, if you drink alcohol, no one say you have to drink, obviously, but if you are open to that, you might just find that the tequila that you thought that you liked, there's a different version. There's an extra añejo version you never had before, might blow your mind. There's a wine grape, you've been drinking Merlot like in Sideways for 30 years, you want to try something else, right? You want to experience, this particular Vidal varietal or something like that. Be open to those things, and food, music, and people are culture. So I don't see why alcohol cannot be added into that. So we've got Dante, who is working with distilleries in Mexico, making his own thing. And Janelle, you are growing grapes in Maryland, which came from all over the world, right? And so those have been transplanted to Maryland, and you're making it your own thing. And not just an American thing, but a Black American experience, and that's unique in and of itself. So we appreciate all that you guys do. I think it's cool, and I will actually be at the expo, so I look forward to meeting both of you. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you both.
Janelle, we'll still let the ladies go last. Dante, you now in the box. Final words.
Just want to say thank you again for extending an invitation to give us a platform to tell our story. For us as Black-owned businesses, especially in this space, like you're always, fighting this uphill battle to be seen in this billion-dollar industry. So again, to be embraced by our local community, it means the most to us. So again, just thank you guys for giving us the time today.
And last but not least, you've been so musical, Janelle. You've been musical all day. That's music to my ears. I'm quiet. I'm thinking about wine a little bit more now.
Good.
Tequila, I've seen a lot of my friends fall down off of tequila.
Yeah, that's why these conversations are so important. So, I echo, Dante and Jay's sentiments and just, saying that, don't be afraid to try new things, Thank you all for, opening up this conversation and creating a platform like this where we can have, conversation and give depth to conversations like this. But I think I just want to leave it in saying that all of this ties back to being willing to take a leap of faith and follow your dreams. And I know right now a lot of people are in places and spaces where they're struggling with what's just even the next step forward. And so I hope that this particular conversation gives light to the fact that you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to take that one next step.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
No, well, that's the final words. I'm getting all kind of texts like I'm supposed to be on the 1 o'clock meet. Anyway, yeah, we're going to see you soon. Don't forget, call us senior. Go to afro.com. They would really love to hear from you and support Dante and Janelle's business, Boyd Cru Wines, and Los Hermanos. I mean, did I say that right? I'm not trying to speak like I'm
Hermanos.
Hermanos. Okay.
You got it.
There we go. We got it. Hermanos. There you go. And be blessed, everybody. Smile and treat everybody with love. And God willing, we'll see everybody at the expo. So there won't be a chicken box next week. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.